Hey, welcome in. Arkansas-Texas A&M starts tonight at Baum-Walker Stadium. We got a full baseball show for you today. Bubba Carpenter is in studio with me. Ryan Brauninger from TexAgs.com will be on the show a little bit later to talk to us about this Texas A&M team. But first, a word from Kendall King.
Proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kendall King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kendall King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
Arkansas changing things up for the series against Texas A&M this weekend. Gage Wood is going to be in the starting rotation for the Razorbacks. He's going to start game 2. That game will be on Friday. Zach Root going to start tonight's game for the Razorbacks. Gage Wood in game 2. Landon Beidelshees in game 3. Bubba, based on what Dave Van Horn has said about Gage Wood and his recovery and what they've been doing with him and maybe what they plan to do when he gets back into game action, which is going to happen this weekend, it feels a lot like the Brady Tygart plan from 2 years ago, where you start him, don't throw him very much, maybe 1 inning, maybe 2 if you're lucky, but probably 1, and then you just build the pitch count back up. But you keep him in that controlled setting where he knows, hey, I'm going to throw my first pitch at, X PM and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to handle it. You and I talked about it last week, and that way everything is controlled, and that he can do everything he needs to get ready to pitch. He's going to go out there and know exactly what time he's going to start. He's going to know how many pitches he's going to throw, and I think that's the best way to handle it. Just bring him back slow, a little bit at a time. But boy, it's really good for this pitching staff. That's a huge boost to have him back in there.
It's kind of ironic because Tygart, his first game back was against Texas A&M in late April. I was looking at it yesterday. Tygart had been out for 58 days whenever he came back. Wood, whenever he pitches tomorrow, it'll have been 54 days since the injury that he had against Michigan. So one was an elbow, one was a shoulder, but you can draw a lot of parallels between the two of them. And here's another one. Tygart, whenever he pitched, they would bring Will McIntyre in behind him, and they kind of discovered that it would throw the hitters off. Something about what Tygart did and then the way Will would pitch. It seemed to go really well for them on those days when they would piggyback Tygart and then McIntyre. I think the question becomes who pitches after Gage Wood leaves the game tomorrow. I went back and listened this morning to whenever I asked Van Horn on Tuesday night about, hey, do you keep Gabe Gackle in the starting rotation? I can't remember verbatim what he said, but basically the gist of it was, in the starting rotation, no. Makes me wonder if maybe Gackle comes out of the bullpen for the second inning or whatever, whenever Gage Wood's time on the mound ends.
Yeah, that would make sense. Now, in a perfect world, you would take Jimenez and bring him out, because you look at the way Gage pitches. Gage is a high carry guy, a lot of carry on the fastball, can pitch top of the zone. Then you got Jimenez coming in, throwing more of a two-seam sinker, cutter type guy. So they would complement each other really well, but you don't want to ruin what you have on Friday night with Root and Jimenez. So I would think that would be a good plan to bring Gackle in after Gage. And I think a lot of it depends on what happens tonight, Thursday night.
And it's kind of weird to feel like there's a game tonight because now everything here in Fayetteville is Thursday, Friday, Saturday until the regional arrives. I think a lot of people will see that Gage Wood's going to throw, and they're going to be like, well, here we go. It's not that easy. There's a real buildup that has to occur with him because he's only been thrown off the mound, I think, for a couple of weeks right now.
Yeah, it takes time. And, unfortunately, it is what it is. You got to build a guy up and then just take it a little bit at a time. I'm going to be excited to see him out there on the bump tomorrow. I hope it goes well. But it's going to be. I know Gage is a guy. He's a competitor, and I know he's probably been driving the guys in the dugout crazy. So they'll be glad to see him out there on the mound.
In the dugout, in the training room, and the weight room. Probably everybody. They were like, let's get this guy. Get him out of here. So I asked Van Horn after the game on Tuesday about Gabe Gackle, and I asked, is there any thought to that? Because last year he was so good out of the bullpen. He never started. And everybody thought last year, hey, at some point in time, he is going to start. And I think there was even some thought that if they got to the Super Regional, he might start one of those Super Regional games for them. Obviously, that never occurred. But he was so good out of the bullpen last year. I asked Van Horn, I said, is there any thought to that he just pitches better as a reliever? And this is what Van Horn had to say.
I mean, you know, he gets all these preseason accolades, and they're not for. It's for you know, they're calling it preseason this and that, but it was all about his relief pitching. So let's see how it goes from here.
Put the mentality, psychology, if you will, aside, the difference between, because we talked about this the other day, of when you start, you have to sit on it and think about it for several days, and when you relieve, you just react. Is there something about the way he pitches, though, that may benefit him more in a relief role?
I think so. And how refreshing it is to have a head coach like DVH that's very candid. He's going to tell you an honest answer to the question. He's not going to sugarcoat it. But that's right. If you compare his numbers, I'm not going to bore you with all his numbers from last year, but they're totally like off the chart different last year numbers versus this year. I think a guy like him, you pitch different, Matt, when you come out of the pen. I mean, you come out of the pen with your hair on fire, you're cutting it loose, you know, and you're attacking hitters. And I think that's kind of what's missing. I feel like I don't want to call him timid, but he just pitches different than he did last year, you know, coming out of the pen, high pressure, high leverage situations. And, you know, hopefully we'll get back to that Gabe that we had last year.
Is there anything to when you start, you're thinking, hey, I got to go 90 pitches, 95 pitches, and I got to really kind of pace myself right here?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I just think you approach it different, you know, and you're looking ahead, you know, saying, okay, I've got to maneuver through this inning and this inning and this inning. I'm trying to give my team 5 innings, and where you're coming out of the pen, you're just attacking hitters. You're just saying, I'm getting outs right here, and it's just a different mindset. And I think some guys are better as starters, and I think some guys are built to come out in a situation. I think you know, I've talked to Hobbs about it before. He said he likes to let some guys create their own mess, you know. So and some guys are good at coming in and cleaning up someone else's mess. And I think Gabe came in some really tough situations last year and proved that it doesn't faze him. So he might be that type of guy.
Now, they're not going to have Parker Coyle this weekend, but they have gotten some encouraging news on him here in recent days. From what I've been told, the initial fear was that it could be a stress fracture in his back, and it is only a stress reaction. And so instead of maybe 7-8 weeks and see if he's going to be available for the regional, it looks like now they might have him back in a few weeks. So they're not going to have him against A&M, probably not going to have him next week when they go to Florida. We'll see after that. But that's encouraging news. I feel like they just keep continuing, and maybe we're jinxing them, but it feels like like from an injury standpoint, the news has been encouraging more than it has been negative, with the exception of what's going on with Nolan Souza, who I would be very surprised if he plays again this year.
You know, it's funny. I don't know the difference, a stress fracture and a stress reaction. I've never heard that before. I'm going to have to Google that when we get done here. But that is good news, because if you go back and look at the Georgia series, had we had a Parker Coyle, we win that series. Nothing against the guys that pitched. I just think there were a couple of situations that Parker would have been perfect for. And, you know, obviously add engaged to the mix. So you're right. We're kind of trending in the right direction. A pitching staff that's already very talented, very, very good, are going to get 2 guys back, hopefully Cole pretty soon.
Arkansas beat UAPB on Tuesday night, 13-3. The Razorbacks with 18 hits. I think any time that you would see, hey, they scored 13 runs, they had 18 hits, you would say, hey, that was a really good night offensively. I think they came out of that game thinking we could have done a whole lot more, because there was a real big lull in the middle of that game.
Well, when you look at the 5th, 6th, and 7th innings, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th innings, no runs. You know, we got off to a great start. We scored 3 in the first, 3 in the second, 4 in the third. Phil and I talked about it on the air. It didn't feel good. You know, even though we scored 13 runs, I felt like we left some runners out there. We had a few those middle innings, and I don't know if we just got out to a lead and we got a little bit. Like, when it comes to hitting, you've got to be focused every pitch. And I feel like, I don't know if we lost focus.
Van Horn used the word complacent.
Complacent, there you go. That's why he makes the big bucks. But yeah, I don't think our approach was good. I feel like we kind of gave away a few at bats, and we were late on some pitches we should have crushed. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like we just got complacent there for a little bit. I really like. I listened to the interview this morning of the players after the game, and I really loved the Kojal interview where he talked about, it's like facing, big brother and little brother in wiffle ball. I like that comparison right there because it's crazy. Like Cahill hit that home run. It was on a 66-mile-an-hour changeup. He hit it 102 miles an hour. It's hard to do. Mm-hmm. You're supplying a lot of power right there. So, it was, it was a little bit of a difference in there, but I saw some good swings from some guys, and I saw some guys I wish they'd have taken a little bit better swings.
Because it's easier to hit power against power.
Absolutely. It's hard. It's hard to maintain bat speed against something that's slow that you're not used to game planning against. I think it took me a long time to learn how to hit a slow pitch and maintain bat speed.
I mean, I don't know, but I can't think of a time where I've ever seen such a big gap between the pitch velocity and the exit velocity. It was 36 miles an hour difference.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's tough to do. And then what's crazy is Cahill's next at bat, he dribbles one out there 53 miles an hour and gets an infield hit on it. But, it is hard to do. And you saw some guys take some good at bats. And then, like I said, I'll tell you a guy we really got to get going is Brent Iredale. He's been scuffling a little bit. He's late on fastballs. And Matt, you can't be late. If you're not on time for the fastball, you're not ready to hit. And he's just got to get on time for that fastball.
We'll play a Brent Iredale, a Dave Van Horn clip about Brent Iredale here in just a second. Cindy, that'll be clip 3 instead of clip 2. You've mentioned against Georgia the other day that they just didn't give him anything to hit or to hit. Maybe he started chasing some stuff. Mm-hmm. How long does it take as a hitter to get, I don't know if you call it a bad habit, but just to get that chase out of your system, so to speak?
Well, you got to get back to the basics, and I call it hitting a speed. You pick a speed and you stay on that speed. And if you have to go a speed and a zone, like I'd number the zone 1 through 7. So if you want to hunt 1 through 5, that's the inner 2/3 of the plate, or hunt the outer 2/3, hunt 3 through 7. I think you got to be specific in it, hunt a pitch, hunt a speed, and be on time. And then from there, you can get back to hunt a speed. If they make a mistake with a slider, let's say if you're ready for the fastball and they hang that slider, you're right on it. And I think it just kind of goes back to the basics of picking one pitch, one speed, being on time, hammering that, and then going from there.
Iredale, I don't know what his best batting average of the season was, like what the high point was, but it was probably in the 360s, 370, or maybe even over 400 at one point.
Yeah.
Down to 297 right now. Like you said, he's really been struggling here of late, second on the team right now in strikeouts. This is what Dave Van Horn had to say on Tuesday night whenever he was asked about Brent Iredale and the struggles that he's having.
He's late on the fastball. He's very picky at the plate, and we love that. But when he does get the fastball, even like tonight, he fouled off 2 or 3 of them. He's working hard. He's frustrated. We need him to get it going again because we know it's in there. So hopefully we'll start Thursday.
Is it easier at all to get a guy out of a slump like that when it's in the middle of the season? He's already had a lot of success early on.
Well, I think just a couple of good swings where he hits the ball hard and hopefully get some hits, because sometimes you just need to get a hit. It can just free you up mentally a little bit. I don't. The time of the year that it happens, it's like anything. He hasn't really failed before until now. Think about it. He went to junior college for 2 years and killed it. Comes in here and has a really good fall. January, February, and March. In February he carried us. He was driving in runs when guys weren't hitting, and there was really nowhere for him to go but down. And we've talked to him. He's going to be fine. He'll come out of it. But for now, he's just got to weather the storm. He's a really good defender, and he's a threat at the plate. He's still getting on base with some walks. His day's coming. He'll come back around.
So we'll see if they can get Brent Iredale out of his funk this weekend against a Texas A&M pitching staff that probably isn't. It's not the A&M pitching maybe that we've seen over the last few years.
I think so. And if you go back to Tuesday night, he did line out to third. Brent did. Boy, he just needs one of those to fall for him. And it can be a blooper over first base. It can be a line drive. It can be a home run. He just needs something. You just need that hit to get you going. I think he's going to go out and have a really good. You look at a Prager. Prager's a smart pitcher, works the zone, changes speeds. I look at Brent Iredale as a smart hitter. I think he's got a real good feel for what that guy's trying to do to him. I think he's going to have a big game tonight.
Going back to UAPB, they changed up the lineup quite a bit, really. I mean, it wasn't maybe the everyday lineup that we're accustomed to seeing. Put Reese Robinette in, played him at first base. He had a big game. Put Kahil Aloy in right field. Let's start with Robinette. 3 for 5, 3 doubles. He didn't have a batting average going into the game. He raised his batting average 273 points on Tuesday night. And I thought it was kind of telling that sometimes you run real UAPB, sometimes you ain't going to get much of a reaction. Yeah. I mean, they looked like they had just broken these guys' hearts, the way they ran out, pulled his jersey off. It was clear to me that here's a guy who is a good teammate, who everybody seems to like, who, his story is different than a lot of the modern day athletes. He has been here for 3 years, hadn't played a whole lot. He hadn't had a hit in over 2 years, hadn't started in over 2 years, redshirted last year, not because of injury, but just because there wasn't really a place at the end for him. And I guess where I'm going with this is I thought the reaction from his teammates on Tuesday night really told you a lot about the character of the player, because you don't get that reaction a whole lot. I mean, this is a guy who is really feels to me like a team-first kind of guy, and his teammates noticed it.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a phrase called work while you wait, and I'm sure you've heard it before. Mm-hmm. And in today's game with the portal and all that, you don't see that a lot. If a guy's not playing, you're like, well, I'm going to go somewhere else. He's going to have an excuse. He's going to blame it on somebody else. I think it's refreshing that Reese has stayed here and worked his butt off, and I think the guys in the dugout appreciate it. The first thing I noticed is what you said. When he hit that ball, how they ran out into left center field and mobbed him, and I thought it was awesome. And it's moments like that make you absolutely freaking love the game, is seeing a team respond like that, because he's a guy that he comes in every day, puts his work in, and he just I love it. I love to see a guy like that have success, and I think the players appreciate it.
He accepts his role, and that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen a lot when you're not playing.
No, it doesn't. And to get in today's game, you just don't see that. And man, it was fun it was really fun to watch, and I thought it was a great way to end that game. And hopefully, a lot of that'll carry over to tonight's game.
Ask Van Horn after the game, had he seen anything different in Reese Robinette's swing? And this is what he had to say.
Hands full.
Had you seen anything out of Reese recently that maybe indicated that he was going to break out?
He's been swinging the bat better in batting practice, like today. It's some balls like you saw tonight, and then we control a lot of their rounds in BP, but when we let it fly, so to speak, he had a couple balls off the scoreboard, and just a little bit. So just felt like he's been a really good teammate. He hasn't complained, and it's time to get him in there and let him play a little bit.
Dave Van Horn on Reese Robinette. Okay, so they've had to take Frazier off the bench because Sousa's hurt now. As you look down the bench, you might need a guy come in, in a pinch hit situation or something. I have to believe, and I know it's UAPB, but I have to believe that the performance that he had Tuesday night gives the coaches more confidence should they need him in one of those situations on the weekend.
I mean, it's nice, having a big lefty bat off the bench, if he can come in and do that. His previous at-bats, he's been a little bit slow, like what I call slider bat speed. After he got that first hit, it's crazy how that one hit, it goes back to what we were talking about with Brent Iredale. After he got that first hit, all of a sudden he looked different. Like his swings were different, had a little bit of, the that I'm always talking about. Yeah. But yeah, I think he's I still remember the big swing against LSU. I'll never forget that. And it's good to see. Hopefully we get that that version of Reese Robinette back, whether, he's starting or whatever. Just having him lurking on the bench could be huge.
Before Tuesday, he'd only had one hit since that home run at LSU. I mean, that kind of gives you an idea of what the time span has been like for here or for him here. I mean, he had that hit. Next week, he played in a midweek game, got a hit. That's it. And had a hit since March of 2023. So a neat deal for him. Kahil Aloy playing right. Dave said before the game the other night, he said it's been kind of scary, when they first put him out there, and I guess he's improved to the point that they felt comfortable enough doing it in the game. I know he had an error. Did you see much out of him to really give you a feel for if he's ready for this?
Yeah, I watched him, and I thought before the game, I mentioned it to Phil. I said, look, with Kahil out there, the ball will find you. The new guy out there, the ball's always going to find. I anticipated more balls hit to him. He had the error that he made was a hustle error, and it's really just a mistake on his part. Like he went, I don't want to say, it's hard to say over hustled, but he went in too hot into the wall. That's a double, and he's got to play it like a double. And that's a little bit of lack of experience and just trying to be too aggressive out there. He's got to just go to the corner, let that ball get to him. He tried to go cut it off. He rushed it, and it got by him. And he'll learn from that. Next time he'll play it into a double because no matter what, that's a sure double.
You can get the latest breaking news on all Razorback Sports at wholehogsports.com. Most in-depth source for all Razorback sports, analysis, latest in recruiting, unique stories on all your favorite teams. Subscribe today at wholehogsports.com. When we come back, Ryan Brauninger from TexAgs and the Texas A&M Radio Network will join us to talk about the Aggies. But first, a word from Kendall King.
At Kendall King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kendall King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design, with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kendall King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
Hey, welcome back. I want to tell you about our friends at Bentonville Glass. They've been serving their community since 1971. Committed, professional, versatile. If you're looking for a quality leader in Northwest Arkansas or looking for skilled craftsmanship, look no further than Bentonville Glass for all your glass market needs with the highest quality products. You can come by and see them now at 507 South Main in Bentonville or online at bentonvilleglass.com. Ryan Brauninger is with TexAgs.com, also as a color analyst for the Texas A&M Radio Network. He joins us this morning to talk about this week's series between the Razorbacks and the Aggies. Ryan, first, appreciate you being with us. The big question, I think, for a lot of people here is what has turned for Texas A&M over the last few weeks?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. And if I knew the answer to that question, I would have given it out the 1,000 times that I've been asked the same thing between today and really last Saturday, or 2 Saturdays ago, in Knoxville against Tennessee. And I wrote a column about it. I don't know what happened. Did Hayden Schott do some kind of ritualistic dance in the hotel lobby that night, between games? I don't know what happened, but they showed up with their backs. There was no more wiggle room when they showed up to the ballpark Saturday against Tennessee for their season. I mean, their season was on the line that day. And not only did they win both games, but they ran off from the Volunteers. And a power surge, the likes that we hadn't seen up to that point, took off. And I don't know, that seems at least to be right now in this window, this period of time, the catalyst for this run that A&M has been on. But, to me, the loss to Tennessee on Friday where you got no hit and shut out, it's a gut check moment for a lot of people that call themselves competitors and a lot of guys. And in that locker room, I think when we asked them about it afterward, they said we were embarrassed. It was the first time we've been disappointed with how we've played this year, but it was the first time that we'd been embarrassed. And so it was cool to see them fight back, get off the mat. I think that shows that a lot of these issues, and this is something that I've written and talked about a lot on radio here in College Station and beyond, is that the issues with this Texas A&M baseball team haven't been cultural. Like, they haven't been issues in the dugout or the clubhouse. There have been issues with how they've played the game of baseball. So it was about cleaning up their method of play. They're cleaning up the offensive swing decisions, cleaning it up on defense, throwing more strikes. All the baseball stuff needed to be fixed. And I thought that if they could do that, they would find some confidence. And that's exactly what has happened, is that the baseball stuff is cleaned up, and because their culture was so good, they've been able to latch onto that confidence quickly.
They're preseason number one. Arkansas went through this 4 years ago when they spent most of the year number one. There's a kind of a running joke that the Razorbacks cured COVID, because every time they would go on the road, everybody would open up their ballparks to full capacity. And where I'm going with this is that you get a different level of focus, I feel like, from the opponents whenever you've got that number one ranking by your name. And it doesn't matter if it's still there by the time you play it. Everybody's talking about A&M throughout the offseason. Do you feel like maybe there's been a little bit of that with A&M, that they've just gotten everybody's best punch, or have there been things within the team that have had to get cleaned up?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Like, in order for A&M to play as poorly as they did through the first month and a half of the season, it's not going to be just one issue. It's a conglomeration of issues, and it all kind of melded together and manifested in that win-loss column. But, yeah, obviously I think, the amount of hype that they got in the offseason, and then just the way last year ended and the coaching change, and Mike Early coming in as the head coach and getting all those guys out of the portal to follow him back to College Station. It was just a lot of momentum. Now, I've never seen that much momentum in the program as there was, especially in the fall. And you can go back and look at some of the videos from A&M's fall exhibition games, and there's 8,000 people in the ballpark for a fall exhibition. And so the hype around the program was at an all-time high. But you guys know, like, that doesn't guarantee you anything. And especially in this league, where the margins, whether you're really, really good like Arkansas and Dave Van Horn has just pumped out high-quality rosters year in, year out, or you're at the bottom, we look at Mississippi State and Texas A&M this year, even Florida. Like, if Arkansas was playing in Gainesville this weekend and they didn't play well, you're going to lose that series, even to a team at the bottom of this league. So, sans Missouri, I think everybody in this league can beat the other one if you're not on your game. And so the margins are so fine in this league. And look, and people around here didn't want to hear it, but I thought it was a huge talking point and a huge discussion point early in the season, is when you lose Gavin Grahovic and you lose Caden Sorrell and you lose Josh Stewart and you were already without Shane Sadeo. I mean, you're talking about potential 3 of those being first-round picks over the next couple of drafts. I don't care if you're in Fayetteville, Baton Rouge, Austin, or Tuscaloosa, or Gainesville, Nashville. If that happens to your roster, you are going to take a step back. Nobody has the kind of depth to replace that level of talent, and that's another thing that was a key factor into how A&M was playing early.
Ryan, I want to go back to April 4th at Knoxville after y'all were no-hit. I know you kind of already answered that question. But, I mean, baseball is such a mental game. I mean, what you kind of refer to, you really don't know what happened, but what was it, a different mindset with the players? Was it different, a different approach at the plate, pitching staff? What do you think turned things around? Because with baseball being such a mental game, something had to change to flip their season like it did, going out on April 5th and turning things around against Tennessee.
Well, if you're looking for turning points in that one game, Terrence Keel II, true freshman leadoff hitter for the Aggies, who was going to probably play a little bit this year, at least that he was expected to play a little bit, be a spot guy, incredible athlete. His dad is one of the greatest safeties that Texas A&M football has ever had. He's just been phenomenal as a freshman for the Aggies, and he makes a play in about the 3rd or 4th inning to rob Andrew Fisher of a home run, and it was like that. If that ball had gone over the fence, it felt like the A&M dugout was going to go, okay, here we go again. But Keel was able to go and pluck it from the Tennessee bullpen, and the dugout just exploded. And it was like that was one of the turning points where, for the most part, or not for the most part, for the entire season, that play hadn't been made. That ball was just out of TK's reach previously. Now he's making that play, and it was like, okay, like there's some belief that we can get this turned around. And then offensively, it came down to their swing and miss rate early in the year on pitches in the zone was crazy. And it led me to believe that it was something that had to be mental, because these are too talented of players to be swinging and missing that much at pitches in the strike zone. And I don't know if it was that play, like giving the offense some belief as well, but from then on, like they have just been obliterating balls. And the offense over the since March 25th, it was a midweek game against Houston Christian, and it was before the Kentucky series, and that's kind of where we started to see the offense come to life. Since that March 25th game, their team OPS is over 1,300.
A&M's got a pretty big series next week. Is that right?
Yeah, they got a bigger one this week, if you're asking me.
Well, I mean, for people who don't know, A&M plays Texas next week in Austin, and it's going to be the much hyped Jim Schlossnagle reunion against A&M. How do you think Michael Early, though, Ryan, keeps the players focused on this week when I think there's a lot of people who are probably peeking ahead to 8 days from now?
Well, I think it's pretty easy. Number one, you're going into a ballpark that's been a kind of a bugaboo place for Texas A&M. The last time the Aggies went up there, Arkansas swept them in 2023. You're also playing the number 2 team in the country. You're also playing one of the most successful head coaches in college baseball history. You're also playing a roster that if you are not focused on this next pitch starting tonight, I've watched a lot of Arkansas baseball this year. They can bloody you in a hurry, and you could end up in a situation like you were in Knoxville where you don't know what happened and you're going to bed that night and you've been run ruled and blown out of the building, and you're facing a real daunting task trying to win not 2 of the next games, but just one of them. So I think it's pretty easy or it should be pretty easy for Mike Early to get his ball club focused because, look, I wrote this week, I said, with A&M's schedule coming up, and for your listeners that are unaware, it's Arkansas, it's Texas, you do have Mizzou right there in the middle, but then you finish with LSU and Georgia. That's like walking to the poker table and you're playing against Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and billionaires. And what A&M has done over the last couple of weeks, they've delayed the necessity to push all their chips in the middle of the table and go all in. The way they've played against Tennessee and winning that series, then sweeping South Carolina last week, you've bought yourselves a couple of more hands at the high roller table. But if you lose those hands quickly, you're going to have to go all in. So A&M still doesn't have much wiggle room at all when you look at their schedule and kind of their prognosis and how they go about making the postseason. So they can't let their focus kind of, I guess, move toward next week in 1 ounce because they'll get bloodied real quick up there at Baum Walker.
Ryan, we were sitting together last year watching what I thought was the best pitching matchup of the year between Ryan Prager and Hagen Smith down there on a Thursday night. Obviously, Hagen's gone. Prager came back to A&M. The numbers don't look quite like probably what people expected, especially in SEC play. What have you seen from him, and what do you think is the key to get him going again?
Well, I thought last week was a step in the right direction, even though the numbers weren't a typical Ryan Prager elite in terms of outcomes. I thought his stuff was much sharper last week than it had been in the weeks before against Tennessee, against Kentucky, and against Alabama. And early in the SEC play against Bama and Vanderbilt, he kind of grinded through it. He used his guile and experience, but you're sitting there going, man, like the fastball velo's down a tick, and I'm not one of these guys that subscribe to, like, if the fastball velo's down, there's something majorly wrong. I need to see the entire analytics sheet before I, make an assessment or an analysis that, hey, there's something really wrong here. So I didn't have access to, the pitch height, spin rate, all the pitch metrics. I didn't have all that. All I had was the fastball velo and then what my eyes told me about the secondary stuff, and it was just off. And so I know that they've been working hard on some mechanical stuff in the bullpen. But Ryan Prager, he's such a pro. Like I don't know that I've ever covered a kid at Texas A&M that was such a professional mindset, and he's incredibly, incredibly cerebral and smart kid. So it has been the numbers have been down in terms of and just the overall aesthetic of the pitches has been down. But he's kind of found his way through it a little bit. And then last week I thought it was more like normal. So. Look, he's going to have to be good tonight to give A&M a chance against an Arkansas lineup that, Dave Van Horn teams always pitch. They're always going to pitch. They always have pitched. They're going to be elite on the pitcher's mound. Where they've kind of come and gone is at the dish, and this year's team, though, has just been out of their mind since February, essentially. I think what they have one weekend offensively where everybody was like, oh, no, here we go again, and then all of a sudden they look like the best offense in the country.
Yeah, it's been pretty. What would be striking the difference between Arkansas in the past and this year? Hey, have you ever seen a team hit 2 grand slams in the same inning before last week?
No, and I've been coaching travel baseball for like 14, 15 years now. So I've coached a lot of games. I've never seen it in games I've coached. I've never seen it in games that I've covered or watched. So yeah, that was a pretty remarkable comeback, a historic comeback for not only A&M but in college baseball. I don't think anybody had ever seen that.
It's a draft year for Lavalette. His numbers aren't as good as they were last year, but I mean, I know we all know he's still very dangerous. Is a byproduct, do you think, of him pressing a little bit, or are teams pitching him different?
Well, if you look at the offensive numbers, the home run total is down, but he's hitting over 300, which is about where he hovered around last year. He's walking at an incredible rate. Like, he's already set the school record for walks in a career. He's on his way to setting the school record for walks in a season. And I think the reason the power numbers may be down a little bit is, man, he had a week. And Matt, you've been to Bluebell Park, and the game you mentioned, the game you referenced between Hagen Smith and Prager last year, that was a very rare north wind day late in the season. Bluebell Park, more so than any other park I've ever been to in this league, is dictated by the weather. If it's cold and the wind's blowing in, you can't hit it out of here. And it's the exact opposite. As soon as that wind turns around, it gets a little hot, and the south wind starts blowing through College Station. It's a bandbox, and the ball flies out of there like crazy. Well, Jake Lavalette had a week early in the season where, by all of his metrics, he should have had 7 home runs in the week. He had 1 because of how the ballpark was playing. So it's been, I would probably say Jace's numbers don't accurately reflect how good he's been in the power and slug department, because of that 1 week would have changed a lot of stuff. But he has been sensationally good at getting on base. He's hit 11 homers, and I'm going to tell you what, man, the kid is playing out of his mind in center field. He has just been remarkable in the outfield this year, play after play, kind of jaw-dropping every weekend.
Ryan, we'll get you out here on this. After Prager tonight, Justin Lampkin is scheduled for Game 2, Miles Patton for Game 3. What do we expect from those two?
Well, the entire Aggie rotation is left-handed, and they're all very similar in their demeanor. It's very low heart rate. You're not going to get a lot of emotion out of any of them. Lampkin has been their best guy this year, and he's riding some momentum that he gained in last year's postseason, especially in Omaha, where he was just incredible when the Aggies finished as national runner-up. But you're going to get pretty similar stuff. Lampkin's going to throw the hardest. Lampkin's going to have the best breaking ball. Really good slider. Miles Patton is big-time pitch ability. You know, it's going to be 89, 92. Throws a lot of pitches in the strike zone. I wouldn't say it's overwhelming stuff, but it's just a really competitive left-hander. And so he's done a good job on Sundays, you know, giving A&M a chance. He was really good against a Tennessee lineup that was playing with a lot of confidence a couple of weeks ago. So, but then last week he was rolling against South Carolina and then lost it in 1 inning, gave up 7 in 1 inning out of nowhere. After rolling through the first 4. So, you know, just like I think every college team kind of fights some inconsistencies up and down throughout their lineup. A&M has just fought them in more elements of the team than they probably perceived going into the year.
Bronny, appreciate your time. Hopefully we see you down in Hoover in a few weeks.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Ryan Brauninger of TexAgs and the Texas A&M network. We appreciate his time. Arkansas-Texas A&M this week. I keep wanting to say weekend, and it's Thursday, and I have trouble calling a Thursday a weekend. 7 o'clock tonight on SEC Network. We'll see how the rain affects the schedule. There's thought that maybe there's some adjustment this weekend due to all the rain in the forecast. We'll see. As of right now, Friday at 6:30 and Saturday at 4. Those games will be on SEC Network. Plus, on SEC Network tonight, Greg Olson, you remember him as a player?
Yeah.
Great Auburn player, played a long time, and I think he was wasn't he the Rookie of the Year in the American League, like 1989, I think?
Yeah, I believe you.
Okay, thank you. He'll be on the call with Lau Galindo, and we got a clip here. This, I think, is the last time that Lau called an Arkansas baseball game. Here, people will remember this call.
Tradition right there. Brew hat. Yeah, beer hats. Oh, no! Battles deep into the night. Has left the stadium
What do you remember about that game? Oklahoma State 22 regional.
Honestly, I got chills right there. I got goosebumps hearing that. That was incredible.
That was a great call too.
Yeah, that was an awesome call. That was an incredible series. I mean, it was amazing.
I'll never forget running into some members of the Arkansas, not coaching staff, but part of the team at lunch, and Missouri State's beating Oklahoma State 12-0. It's like, well, I guess we got to get ready for Missouri State now. And then you get to the ballpark, and Oklahoma State comes back, and they win that game like 29-15 or something.
Yeah.
That whole weekend was just it's one of those weekends that you just never forget.
You know, I don't remember the ball ever carrying like that in any ballpark I've played in.
Yeah.
I mean, the ball was flying all weekend, and it was exciting. And, boy, the players showed a lot of fight, a lot of grit, and it was, it was fun to watch.
And they went to Chapel Hill, and they swept North Carolina the next week in the Super Regional. And there was even a walk-off to send them to Omaha, and I did not feel like any element of what happened in Chapel Hill was nearly as entertaining or exciting as what happened the week before.
I don't think so. And the best part for me was Hagan coming in and getting that last strikeout.
It was a real fun weekend. So Lau Galindo and Greg Olson on the call tonight. A&M 21-15, 6-9 in the SEC, but they've won 7 in a row, 5 in a row in SEC play. And you mentioned it when you asked Bronny. I mean, they got no hit. And now they're averaging 13 runs a game since then. How do you make sense of what's going on there?
Yeah, that's why I asked him that question. It's like you kind of want to know, was it a player meeting where the players got together after the game and just, said, hey, look in the mirror, let's figure this out. Typically a turnaround like that comes from a team leader where they sit down and they have a heart-to-heart and they're like, guys, we just got embarrassed. We're 1-9 in the conference. Let's turn this thing around, But whatever it was, I mean, he referred to a specific play. I mean, all it takes is one thing in the game of baseball. It's so crazy. The game's so fragile. One thing can turn you around mentally, and it's happened for them now. Our job is to turn that back around the other way.
So they had a big weekend last week against South Carolina. We've seen South Carolina. That is not a good team.
Mm-mm.
Pitching staff is not good. Is there anything that they're going to see a more elite level of pitcher this week that may give Arkansas an advantage in terms, and what I mean by that, Bubba, is in terms of it's a different kind of style of pitching, I think, than what they've seen for the last week and a half or so.
I think so. I think our pitching staff's going to be the big equalizer there. In conference SEC play only, they're hitting 252 as a team. So, yeah, I think it's going to be different when you're facing, Razorback pitching. And so I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for them. Now, they've always got good pitching. Now, here's the thing that really stands out to me is they're facing 3 lefties. And, Ryan even said they're similar. And I think you're doing me a favor as an offensive team. If you throw 3 lefties at me, they all kind of morph together at the end of the day. Now, I know they have different stuff. Lampkin's more of a power guy. Prager's more of just I'm going to pitch. And I don't know. I just feel like you're doing us a favor offensively if you throw 3 lefties at us, and we handle lefties really well.
Yeah, going back to Childress's years, it's always been a very lefty heavy rotation. I don't know what it is about A&M. I've always said the left-handers grow on trees somewhere around College Station. They always have more left-handers, I feel like, than any other team you see each year. Dave Van Horn was asked about Texas A&M the other night, and I think the question was framed in maybe like this, that are you happy that you're playing a team that maybe they're not as hungry? I can't remember exactly how it was phrased, but here's what Van Horn had to say about facing an A&M team that's been on a little bit of a roll lately.
To me, it wouldn't have mattered if they were playing great or struggling. I know how talented they are. They have most of their players from last year back. They got their pitching staff back. They did lose their third baseman to an injury early in the season. Brought in a couple of good players from other schools. I read a comment right before the season started because they were number 1 in every poll. that they had the most talented roster in Division I baseball. So they're good, and we're not looking. It didn't matter if they were struggling coming in here. We weren't going to look past them. I'll guarantee you that. They're going to be a big time challenge. They're really good.
Does it remind you a little bit, because it does to me? Remember when Florida came in here last year? Record wasn't what people thought it was going to be, but then you look at the lineup and it's like, man, how are these guys playing like that? Obviously, we saw what Florida did at the end of the year and got hot and nearly played for a national championship. That's what this year's A&M team kind of feels like to me, is Florida of 24.
And also Ole Miss of 22.
Yeah.
I remember Ole Miss came in here in 22 and they weren't winning. And I'm looking at their roster thinking, what's going on? I mean, just studs at every lineup, veteran players, and they just weren't getting it done. And eventually they turned it around. But, yeah, you see a lot of similarities there. Now, to that question about do you feel like it's a team that's not as desperate, I think at 6-9 they're still desperate. I mean, their schedule's not going to get, other than Mizzou, their schedule doesn't get any easier. I would feel better playing them if they were 1-14. They'd be really desperate, but then, you'd be like they'd thrown a towel in. But I think it's going to be tough for us. I think it's going to be a good challenge. But look, we're playing at Baum Walker. The only thing that I don't like about it is if we end up with a doubleheader early on Friday, the fans aren't going to be there. And I think the fans, that's kind of our 12th player, however you want to look at it.
You don't want to say 12th man.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that. Yeah. So
well, and and this is that weekend, because the spring football game's on Saturday, where you always kind of expect something really big attendance-wise for that Saturday game, but the weather does not look like it's going to cooperate very much on Saturday. So, I feel like there are a couple of things that play here that favor A&M. One being the fact that you can take there's potentially that doubleheader, we'll see, but then also the Thursday, Friday, Saturday element of it. I mean, you don't get that Friday night crowd on a Thursday night. You just don't. And then you throw the TV angle into this too, where it's a 7:00 first pitch as opposed to a 6:00 first pitch. And that makes a difference for people on whether or not they're going to attend the game.
Yeah, and then if there is an early doubleheader, you're looking at a quick turnaround.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to take part of the fan element out, the Baum Walker advantage for that. But I still look, our guys are ready to play. I know they've still got it kind of helped UAPB get the taste of Georgia out of their mouth. But I think they're going to come out hungry tonight, ready to play, and I think it's going to be a good weekend for us. Feel good about it.
You mentioned earlier talking to me that, and this keeps with those Florida comparisons from last year, that Lavalette reminds you a lot of Caglione.
Yeah. So I look at guys like Caglione last year, and I want to say, and I'm sorry if I misquote, I'm not going to quote him, but I feel like I talked to Hobbs about Caglione last year, and I told him I think he's the best college hitter I've ever seen. And you look at a guy like that and you try to find a hole, and there's not a hole. There's not really a way to pitch to him, and I feel the same about Lavalette. I watch him hit, and I don't see how you can get him out. If you pitch him the same, like you throw him in, he's going to pull it. You throw him away, he's going to go with it. You throw it off speed, he stays back. I mean, I don't see how you get him out. Now, I'm going to talk to Hobbs about that tonight and see what kind of plan they've put together for him, but I don't see it. I see him similar to a Caglione, not quite the power numbers, but just a total package as a player. Ryan talked about how good he is in the outfield. I watch him move in the outfield. The guy's phenomenal in the outfield.
Remember that catch he had up against the wall in Omaha last year?
Yeah, I mean, the guy, he's awesome. And you referred to his numbers, and his numbers really aren't off pace from last year. I mean, he's walking more than he's striking out. His on-base percentage is higher. The guy's good. He's really good. And I like watching good baseball players play. I'm looking forward to watching him this weekend.
Mistake on my part, because honestly, and we talked about this, I like OPS a lot better. I was just looking at batting average. Batting average is down from what he did last year, but I don't know that really means anything. Like you said, his walks are up.
Keep your head up. You're doing a good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Speaking of Hobbs and Caglione, by the way, he and I had a conversation before last season because I was writing an SEC preview for our magazine, and we were talking about Caglione, and I'm talking about, hey, I think he's the best hitter. To say, don't sleep on Charlie Condon. He said that guy was probably the hardest guy that we had or the guy that we had the most trouble putting away last year. And then look what Condon does last season, so the guy kind of knows what he's talking about, I think. Ryan Prager, last year, mentioned this earlier, the game with Hagen Smith, I mean, that was just an awesome pitching matchup. And I know a lot of people who are just kind of fly-by-night baseball fans, they hate pitching duels. Like, this was a 1-0 game that ended in 11 innings.
Yeah.
It's going to be, and it started at 8 o'clock. I bet it probably put some people to sleep last year. It was like taking a sleep gummy watching that game for non-baseball people. But I've always thought that in a low-scoring game like that, it's like the most exciting game you can watch because the game can literally be determined on one pitch. It's not where, hey, you're going to put this together, this inning, and this together, that inning. One pitch can change all of it. I remember the 2012 Game 3 Super Regional against Baylor, 1-0 in 10 innings. And, I mean, you're sitting there on the edge of your seat because the next pitch, that could be the one that's the difference between your season ending tonight or your season going to Omaha next week.
If that type of game bores you, you need to go watch soccer. I'm sorry. If you can't get excited about a game like that. Now, I love offense. I go back to, Oklahoma State regional. To me, that was great. It was fun baseball. Now, was the pitching great? Yeah, I don't know. I think it was just really good hitting, to be honest with you, and it was good hitting conditions. But yeah, a game like that, you're right. One misstep in the infield, one misstep in the outfield, one pitch that misses a spot changes that game, and that's why it's so tough. And so he's going to be a good test for us. But look, we're a different team this year when it comes to left-handed pitching. I mean, in the past, lefties have kind of been our kryptonite. If you look years past, even all the way back as far as I can remember, back in our day, lefties we scuffled against. But, boy, now, I mean, we got dudes that can stay in there. Lefties can hit the lefties. And I haven't seen Prager splits yet, so I don't know how he does against lefty versus righty. But I think we're going to go out with a really good approach. Nate Thompson, Bobby Warnes do a great job. Zach Barr does a great job putting together a scouting report, and DJ Baxendale. So I tell you what, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Prager, these aren't his splits, but these are his numbers in SEC play. A 6.75 ERA, a 1.47 WHIP, and this speaks to some non-Texas A&M like defense because they're always one of the teams that can really field. 6 unearned runs behind him in 29 and a third innings. This is in SEC play, so a 6.75 ERA, 1.47 WHIP in 29 and a third innings in SEC play. A&M as a team, Bubba, is only fielding 966.
Yeah, 41 errors. Razorbacks have made 21. 41 errors, that's a lot of errors. Now, I went back and looked, and I usually don't print off the defensive sheet, but I wanted to know, and so I went and looked at where the errors are coming from. And, they're coming from a lot of different players. It looks like they've moved some stuff around. They've moved some guys from infield to outfield. They've kind of made some changes. So it's gotten a little bit better. But you're kicking a lot of balls around if you're fielding 969.
Dave Van Horn asked him about Ryan Prager, what he remembered about him from that game last year, and this is what he had to say.
Well, he's very, very confident. He really locates. It's not like overpowering. He just knows how to pitch. It hasn't been quite the same as last year for him, but I know that we're in for a challenge, and we've got to definitely be ready for him and have a great approach against him.
So Dave Van Horn on Ryan Prager. I don't have the stats right here, Bubba, but I can tell you that against against left-handers, Prager's been looks like he's been really good this year. So there's that.
He hadn't seen our lefties.
We'll see how it goes. Charles Davelin's been I don't know if I'd say struggling at the top because he's still getting on base some, but he was hitting at such a high level for so many weeks there. Have you seen anything different from him in the last week?
Nothing.
Week or two?
I think he's having good at bats. Someone else said to me he struggled at Georgia. Well, you go back and look at Georgia. He lined out the left field a couple times. He lined out the center. Center fielder made a diving catch coming in. Mm-hmm. I mean, he had some really good at bats, and in a lot of ballparks, 2 of those balls he hit to left, probably gone. in a lot of ballparks, and you go into UAPB, flied out deep to left 3 times. A lot of days those are home runs, and so he lined out to left once and then 2 deep fly balls. And so, look, I think he's fine. I think he's hitting the ball hard. I don't look at the result. I look at the quality at bat. Did he get a good pitch? Did he put a good swing on it? Did he hit it hard? Those are the metrics I look at.
257 is what Prager's pitching against left-handers. So good, not great, but serviceable.
Yeah, I think the one thing I want to know.
He's actually harder on right-handers. 242.
Is he?
Mm-hmm.
That means he probably has a good. Well, he does have a good changeup. You know, when a lefty like that, typically they're better. That type of lefty, that's a smart guy, is usually pretty good with righties because he can mix that changeup in. You know, that changeup fastball combination or cutter in on the righties. Where lefties tend to get a better look at him because a lot of times they don't feel confident throwing lefty changeup. So we'll see what happens.
As a player, when you have a big series coming up next week like A&M does, I mean, this is not your typical rivalry series. I mean, this is personal for these players. What Jim Schlossnagle did to them, leaving them the day after they get their hearts ripped out in Omaha, and then going, 100 miles over to the west the way he did. I mean, are they able to focus this weekend? Is it tough to focus as a player on this series this weekend when you know what you've got and everybody, I'm sure, is talking to them about coming up next week?
Okay, if you're playing Missouri this week, I think they overlook and their minds on Texas. But I think coming to Baum Walker, I think they have to be focused on this series. I think Mike Early's going to get them. He's going to get them ready for this series because you can't overlook Arkansas. Now, I think the minute the game's over, whether it be Friday night or Saturday, I think, they're going to be chomping at the bits to get there, and I would be because the way that whole deal went down, I'd be ready to go into UT and just beat down on them.
I think Arkansas and A&M players can share horns down at the end of the series.
I bet they can.
I remember, did I tell you about this last year whenever we were in College Station? Like if you were a Razorback fan and you walked in front of their student section, they'd yell at you, give us a horns down, and you'd do it. And they'd start chanting, one of us. Anyway, it was a really fun atmosphere, even though they are hard on the players.
Right, they're tough. I remember going there back in the day. We played a 17-inning game for the conference championship way back in the day, and I remember that I was like overwhelmed. That was one of the most fun. That was tough. I mean, they were on you everything you did, especially with a name like Bubba. They're all over you. But it was a lot of fun, and yeah, it was. They were rough on you, but then after the game, they want to take you out. To take you out on the town, so it was fun.
1 Bubba, 2 Bubba.
Exactly.
I remember. Speaking of A&M and that ballpark, Michael Early, their head coach, after they beat Tarleton State on Tuesday night, had this to say about facing Arkansas. Just quick warning, their ballpark is built basically on top of a train track, so there's a little bit of ambient audio going on here.
My scouting's been very limited on them, just because truly focus was all on Tarleton. But I know they can really hit, and they're a really good baseball team. I mean, they're going to be one of the best, if not the best team we've played this year. And going into that environment, we're going to have to come bring some energy and play play. It's going to be tough, but I love where we're at going into it. It ain't going to make it easier, so we're going to find out what we're made of, and I can't wait to get out there.
How much do you think maybe your team's positive experience at Tennessee can help going into a series like this?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think that experience we had at Tennessee has kind of helped put us, looking hopefully in the direction it looks like we're heading. So, I mean, that was also obviously massive, and to get a win on the road, and we're going to go into, a tougher environment, I believe, at Arkansas, and a really, really good baseball team. So, I mean, Tennessee is obviously elite. Arkansas is elite. I don't know who's better. I just know they're both really, really good.
Sounds like Winslow with all the trains and the tractors.
It sounded like he gave the interview. It sounded like he was driving the train during that interview. I got to call BS, though, on his scouting staff's been focused on Tarleton, and they haven't had a chance to look at Arkansas. I call BS on that. I don't know but anyway, yeah, that's the politically correct answer.
The audio courtesy of TexAgs. Hey, what do you think about these Thursday, Friday, Saturday? You like them?
No, I don't like him. For me, I love Friday night at Baum-Walker opening the series with two aces on the mound. I think it is really hard to beat that atmosphere. So no, I don't like it.
Yeah, no, and like I said, it affects who can come to the game.
Yeah.
And it's just not. There's just going to be something lacking there tonight. I bet it's a great crowd. Probably 6, 7, 8,000 people in there, but it's not 11. It's not 12. It's not that overflow. Just kind of buzz in the air type feel that you get on a Friday night.
You know what? I think we'll surprise you. I think we're gonna get 9 or 10 in there tonight. I think
It'll
we'll
be
have a
announced
really
that.
good crowd. I think we're gonna have a good crowd. It's supposed to be 75 on almost 80 degrees
yeah.
at game time. So I think we're gonna have a good crowd. With the rain coming in, I think people want to watch the Razorbacks. I think they'll be there tonight.
Hope so. I hope so. I love sitting there in, like you said, that game one, aces on the mound. I just don't want to sit there and there be nobody at the ballpark. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I think it'll be a great crowd tonight. I do wish that, and I understand why they do it this week. It's Easter weekend. I've been to games on Easter Sunday. Nobody comes to those games.
Right.
And so that's why they do it this week. But then there's other reasons why they're going to play Texas on a Thursday. TV. They're going to play Tennessee on a Thursday. SEC tournament. So just kind of these are the three biggest series of the year. And all of them are going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I think that's just kind of a bad break for Arkansas here as the season winds down. Bubba, appreciate you being here. We will have coverage tonight at WholeHogSports.com from this game between Arkansas and Texas A&M. We'll be back tomorrow with another podcast to discuss it. Hope to see you then.